As many Americans across the country continue to get vaccinated against COVID-19, some are hesitant to get in line. COVID-19 specialist Amanda Decker has a closer look.
We're learning new details tonight about how rural and urban America have been impacted by COVID-19 and how these two very different areas in our country have responded to the pandemic. Kaiser Family Foundation is out with the results of a recent study that looked at how rural Americans were responding to COVID-19, their level of fear about getting infected, and whether or not they plan on getting vaccinated. According to the Kaiser survey, Americans living in small towns have a very different attitude toward the pandemic than those living in large metro areas. Early on in the COVID-19 pandemic, our bigger city centers like Manhattan were hit hard by the sudden spike in cases. But last summer, that started to change across the country. As community spread in big cities started to slow down, cases in rural areas were ramping up. And by September, those smaller areas on average had twice as many deaths per capita as places like New York City and Chicago. Now, even 5 months after we saw that trend switch, large cities continue seeing ups and downs, but rural areas have continued seeing those consistent high community spread numbers as well as high numbers of deaths. Smaller communities face very different challenges than big cities. Many small towns lack access to hospitals or trained medical staff. But the biggest concern now is the vaccine hesitancy that we are seeing in rural communities. According to the KFF study, rural residents are among the most vaccine hesitant groups in our country, along with Republicans between the ages of 30 and 49, as well as Black adults. 31% of people in small towns say they will definitely get the vaccine, but in urban areas, 42% of people say they plan to get it. 35% of those living in rural areas say they will likely or definitely not get it at all. And the biggest reasons, they either don't trust it or don't think it's necessary. No matter where you live, at this point, you likely know someone who has been infected by COVID-19 at this point. But still, 39% of people in small town America say they are not worried about getting sick. And in big cities, only 23% of people say they aren't worried. But as many as half of rural residents say the seriousness of the pandemic has been generally exaggerated. In urban areas, about 27% of people believe that theory. Now, the study also found an overwhelming number of people in small areas across America believe that getting vaccinated simply is a personal choice, compared to 64% of people in urban city areas who believe getting vaccinated is our duty to protect those around us in our community. I'm COVID-19 specialist Amanda Decker reporting.